Well guys, happy freaking new year. Look who also got a little Christmas gift this year. I hope 2025 is the year of big things for all of us. New year, same old shenanigans. So stick around and let's see what this year has in store. Now let me start off by apologizing for not posting a video last Sunday. I really do try my best to post every single Sunday, but with the silly season, family events and all that, I was kept quite busy. But it did also give me some time to take a step back, reevaluate things, set new goals so that we can start this year off with a bang. Funny enough, I just checked. In 2024, I posted a total of 52 videos. That is still one video per week. Not too bad. The goal for 2025 is to beat that number and make more videos and keep pushing myself to build bigger and crazier things. Like I said, I really want to start this year off with a bang. So in today's video, I really want to have the first start up of the Twin-Supercharged C400. What a great way that would be to start off the new year. So in the previous video 2 weeks ago, you saw I got started on the new Intec manifold to have that fit alongside the two superchargers that takes up a lot of space in the engine bay. I figured out the runners and the only thing left to do was to build this collector. And there we go, ram bam thank you ma'am. Just about ready to give this thing the first fire up, but I really do need to take everything back apart again and do like the final installation. Everything, once I figured out like the bracket for the superchargers, I just got them bolted on there to check a few things, and then I moved on to the intake manifold, got that sorted out. But I do have a few clearance issues. I still need to seal up the two superchargers so that we don't have any boost leaks. I need to reinstall the slightly modified thermostat housing and a couple of other things. So without further ado, let me remove the intake, figure out that clearance issue. I'm just going to use the air tool to take a bit of meat off this first supercharger. Then I'm going to remove the superchargers. I might want to add a little support for this pulley over here. There's going to be a lot of tension on that. I'm honestly a bit worried about the belt and if it'll stay on once I do fire up the engine, but we won't know until we just do it. So let me take everything apart, do the final installation. I'm going to show you guys how I do that, and well, then it's time for the first fire up. I'm sure all of us are very excited to see that. Let's get into it. Now usually using the air tool with this carbide bit works great on aluminium, but I'm guessing this is some kind of cast aluminium and that just ends up sticking to the bit and therefore it's kind of useless. So I just ended up using the grinder to get this sorted out. Okay, so after taking another look at this, I am not gonna add a support piece for this pulley. I think this thing is about as strong as it can be, so I'm just gonna leave it as it is. That also means I don't need to remove that bottom supercharger with the bracket and everything, so that's gonna save a lot of time. And then as you saw, I got this clearance situation sorted out. Just took those little fins off. I'm sure it'll be fine. I mean, I don't know what those are for, but should be fine. I also already went ahead and added this little plate to seal up that hole, because I'll only be using this one on this supercharger as well as the same one on the other supercharger, and that would be the intake side where the air filter is going to connect onto. I just sealed that up with some universal sealing compound, so I'm going to use that to seal up this. That put the plate on the other supercharger. I need to put some on the throttle body and then also on this flange to seal up against the engine. Do need to clean all of these up, and then the thermostat housing as well, get that back on there. So far so good. Then I just need to get everything connected up, get some fuel for this thing, and then it's time. Let's keep going. Well, it's the next day. Yesterday we got a bit of rain, so I had to get all the tools back into the workshop and unfortunately call it a day at that. But I got up nice and early this morning to continue connecting everything we need for the first fire up. For the first start up, I'm not going to connect the superchargers to the intake, so there will be no boost. This will run basically like it was naturally aspirated. If I go ahead and connect that pipe to the throttle body, it's just going to be like all the boost. There's no way to control the boost yet. So like I said, let me first check if the belt stays on, and then we can go from there. One thing I really like about this engine, as well as the M104 in that car, they are pretty simple and they don't even need a belt to run. I won't be able to drive it, but a quick start up will be fine because the oil pump is inside the engine, chain driven, so as long as you don't run it too long, everything should be fine. Very simple. We have the crank pickup over there, so that tells the ECU when to fire, and then all the injectors are plugged in. I have the fuel lines connected up, as well as the vacuum reference lines. Throttle cable on there, the Volkswagen VR6 coil pack connected up to all 6 spark plugs, so we should be able to just add some fuel, connect up the battery, and then hear this thing roar to life. And one slight drawback about this engine and gearbox setup is the automatic transmission uses these lines that go into the radiator to cool the transmission fluid. So I just have it looped like this, because once you do fire up the car, the ATF starts flowing. So hopefully with this we won't make a huge mess. Fuel gauge. Should be good. Well, here goes nothing. Really hoping this belt stays on. Another thing is, we need to remember that these pulleys are about 3 times smaller than the crank pulley. So if the car's RPM is at about 1000 RPM, that's times 3. So these will be at like 3000 RPM on idle. I know for a fact on idle it is going to make boost. That's the cool thing about superchargers. But let's fire it up and see what happens. I'll just take a few seconds for the fuel system to prime, and then it should fire up. Okay. How good is that? The belt actually stayed on all the pulleys. Gave it a couple of revs just to speed everything up and properly test it, but I had to stop before I make a huge mess. But now that we know the belt stays on, I can go ahead and put the radiator back on so that we don't leak all the transmission fluid out, get the front end back on there, and then I can go ahead and start routing the boost pipes through the intercooler and then into the throttle body. On idle, I don't know if you heard that, but these superchargers push a lot of air, and I can't just push that air straight into the throttle body. I don't think the ECU is going to be happy. I don't know. I'm going to have to figure out how to control the boost before the throttle body. So on idle, that no boost goes into the throttle body, and then as soon as I open up the throttle body, it can allow boost to go in there. But I'll explain once I get to that. I do have a plan, but for now, let me put the front end back together. And then we'll go from there. So happy about that. Woo! And in 3, 2, 1, easy peasy Japanesey. Now, I'll be honest, that took a lot longer than I expected it to. Talk about a tight squeeze. So getting everything onto the engine and everything connected up turned out to be a real pain in the... I thought I would just quickly get the front end back on there and then move on to how I will be controlling the boost, or my plan. Really excited to show you guys what I have in mind for that, using a throttle body and an actuator so that we have more control of the boost. But again, unfortunately, ran out of time, so we'll have to get to that in the next video. We are making good progress. We'll get there eventually. These things just take time, but I hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you did, please do give the video a thumbs up, and then I'll see you in the next one. Peace.